Rey is a character in the Star Wars franchise and the main protagonist of the sequel film trilogy. She was created by Lawrence Kasdan, J.J. Abrams, and Michael Arndt for The Force Awakens, the first installment of the trilogy, and is primarily portrayed by Daisy Ridley. She also appears in the film sequels, The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, and related Star Wars media. Rey is introduced as a scavenger who was abandoned on the planet Jakku when she was a child. She becomes involved in the Resistance's conflict with the First Order. Powerfully Force-sensitive, Rey trains to be a Jedi under siblings Luke Skywalker and Leia Organa, and faces adversaries such as Kylo Ren, Supreme Leader Snoke and the resurrected Emperor Palpatine, who is revealed to be her grandfather in The Rise of Skywalker. Despite being enemies, Rey and Kylo Ren share a connection called a Force dyad and eventually become romantically involved with one another. Following Palpatine's final defeat and her own resurrection, Rey adopts the name Rey Skywalker to honor her mentors and their family legacy and renounce her lineage. As the last remaining Jedi, she makes it her mission to rebuild the Jedi Order. Premise: the Star Wars franchise depicts the adventures of characters a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, in which humans and many species of aliens coexist with robots, who may assist them in their daily routines. Space travel between planets is common due to light-speed hyperspace technology. The planets range from wealthy, planet-wide cities to deserts scarcely populated by primitive tribes. Virtually any Earth biome, along with many fictional ones, has its counterpart as a Star Wars planet which, in most cases, teem with sentient and non-sentient alien life. The franchise also makes use of other astronomical objects such as asteroid fields and nebulae. Spacecraft range from small starfighters, to huge capital ships such as the Star Destroyers, to space stations such as the moon-sized Death Stars. Telecommunication includes two-way audio and audio-visual screens, holographic projections, and HoloNet. The universe of Star Wars is generally similar to ours, but its laws of physics are less strict, allowing for more imaginative stories. One result of that is a mystical power known as the Force, which is described in the original film as an energy field created by all living things, binds the galaxy together. The field is depicted as a kind of pantheistic god. Through training and meditation, those whom the Force is strong with exhibit various superpowers. It is believed nothing is impossible for the Force. The mentioned powers are wielded by two major knightly orders at conflict with each other: the Jedi, peacekeepers of the Galactic Republic who act on the light side of the Force through non-attachment and arbitration, and the Sith, who use the dark side by manipulating fear and aggression. While Jedi Knights can be numerous, the Dark Lords of the Sith are intended to be limited to two, a master and their apprentice. Another notable fictional element of Star Wars is hyperspace, an alternate dimension that allows faster-than-light travel. Force wielders are very limited in numbers in comparison to the population. The Jedi and Sith prefer the use of a weapon called a lightsaber, a blade of plasma that can cut through virtually any surface and deflect energy bolts. The rest of the population, as well as renegades and soldiers, use plasma-powered blaster firearms. As a result of galaxy-scaled politics, all this weaponry is made use of in various military conflicts during which most Star Wars material takes place. In the outer reaches of the galaxy, crime syndicates such as the Hutt cartel are dominant. Bounty hunters are often employed by both gangsters and governments. Illicit activities include smuggling and slavery. The combination of science fiction and fantasy elements makes Star Wars a very universal franchise, capable of telling stories of various genres. Films. The Star Wars film series centers around 3 sets of trilogies, the 9 films of which are collectively referred to as the Skywalker Saga. They were produced non-chronologically, with episodes 4-6 being released between 1977 and 1983, episodes I-3 being released between 1999 and 2005, and episodes 7-9, being released between 2015 and 2019. Each trilogy focuses on a generation of the Force-sensitive Skywalker family. The original trilogy depicts the heroic development of Luke Skywalker, the prequels tell the backstory of his father Anakin, while the sequels feature Luke's nephew, Ben Solo, and Luke's protégé Rey. An anthology series set between the main episodes entered development in parallel to the production of the sequel trilogy, described by Disney Chief Financial Officer Jay Rasulo as origin stories. The first entry, Rogue One, tells the story of the rebels who steal the Death Star plans just before Episode 4. Solo focuses on Han Solo's backstory, also featuring original trilogy CO protagonists Chewbacca and Lando Calrissian and involving prequel trilogy villain Darth Maul. Lucasfilm has a number of Star Wars films in development, 2 of which were confirmed during Disney Investor Day 2020. The first will be an unspecified film from Taika Waititi, who in May 2020 was announced to be directing a Star Wars film he was co-writing with Krysty Wilson-Cairns. The second is a film titled Rogue Squadron, which is being directed by Patty Jenkins. Additionally, a trilogy independent from the Skywalker saga is being written by The Last Jedi writer/director Rian Johnson. In September 2019, it was announced that Kathleen Kennedy and Kevin Feige would collaborate to develop a Star Wars film, however the film was no longer in active development as of 2022. In February 2020, a film was announced to be in development from director J.D. Dillard and writer Matt Owens. In May 2022, the Waititi film was expected to be the next Star Wars film to be produced, ahead of the previously announced Rogue Squadron, with Kennedy stating that they were aiming for a late 2023 release date but had not yet officially scheduled one. As of September 2022, untitled films are scheduled for release on December 19, 2025, and December 17, 2027. The Skywalker Saga. Original Trilogy. Prequel Trilogy. Sequel Trilogy. Anthology Films. Lucasfilm and Kennedy have stated that the standalone films would be referred to as the Star Wars Anthology Series. Focused on how the rebels obtained the Death Star plans introduced in the 1977 film, the first anthology film, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, was released on December 16, 2016, to favorable reviews and box office success. The second, Solo, A Star Wars Story, centered on a young Han Solo with Chewbacca and Lando as supporting characters, was released on May 25, 2018, to generally favorable reviews and underperformance at the box office. The television series Obi-Wan Kenobi was originally going to be a film instead but changed to a limited series due to Solo underperforming. Despite this, more anthology films are expected to be released, following a hiatus after 2019's The Rise of Skywalker. Television. The Star Wars franchise has been spun off to various television productions, including 2 animated series released in the mid-1980s. Further animated series began to be released in the 2000s, the first 2 of which focused on the Clone Wars. After Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm, only the later CGI series remained canon. 8 live-action Star Wars series will be released on Disney+. The first, The Mandalorian, premiered on November 12, 2019 and won the 2020 Webby Award for Television and Film in the category Social. Disney and later released the Ewoks movies and animated series, along with the animated first appearance of Boba Fett from the Star Wars Holiday Special, and the Clone Wars animated micro-series in a section called Star Wars Vintage, which also includes the Droids animated series. Certain aspects of the original Clone Wars micro-series are considered to not contradict the canon, while others do. Series. Many Star Wars series have been produced, both animated and live-action, the first being Droids and Ewoks in 1985. The Mandalorian, the first live-action series to take place in the Star Wars universe, has spawned multiple spin-offs and inspired other live-action series to be created. Confirmed upcoming animated series include Young Jedi Adventures, as well as upcoming live-action series Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, The Acolyte, and Lando. Films and specials. Fictional timeline. The Star Wars canon fictional universe spans multiple eras, of which 3 are focused around each of the film trilogies. The following eras were defined in January 2021. The High Republic, the era of the High Republic, set 200 years before the prequel trilogy. It includes the media released in the High Republic and the upcoming Young Jedi Adventures and The Acolyte. Fall of the Jedi, the era of the prequel trilogy, in which the Democratic Galactic Republic is corrupted by the Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, who is secretly the Sith Lord Darth Sidious. After orchestrating the Clone Wars between the Republic and a separatist confederation, Palpatine exterminates the Jedi Order, overthrows the Republic, and establishes the totalitarian Galactic Empire. It includes the prequel trilogy films and the animated The Clone Wars and Tales of the Jedi. Reign of the Empire, the era after the prequel trilogy, exploring the reign of the Empire. It includes the animated The Bad Batch, Solo, A Star Wars Story and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Age of Rebellion, the era of the original trilogy, in which the Empire is fought by the Rebel Alliance in a galactic civil war that spans several years, climaxing with the death of the Emperor and fall of the Empire. It includes the animated Star Wars Rebels, Andor, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, and the original trilogy films. The New Republic, the era after the original trilogy, set during the formative years of the New Republic following the fall of the Empire. It includes The Mandalorian and its spin-off series, The Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka, as well as the upcoming Skeleton Crew. Rise of the First Order, the era of the sequel trilogy, in which the remnants of the Empire have reformed as the First Order. Heroes of the former rebellion, aided by the New Republic, lead the resistance against the oppressive regime and its rulers, the mysterious being known as Snoke and the revived Palpatine. It includes the animated Star Wars Resistance and the sequel trilogy films. The expanded universe of spin-off media depicts different levels of continuity, which were deemed non-canonical and rebranded as Legends on April 25, 2014, to make most subsequent works align to the episodic films, the Clone Wars film, and television series. Other media. From 1976 to 2014, the term expanded universe was an umbrella term for all officially licensed Star Wars storytelling material set outside the events depicted within the theatrical films, including novels, comics, and video games. Lucasfilm maintained internal continuity between the films and television content and the EU material until April 25, 2014, when the company announced all of the EU works would cease production. Existing works would no longer be considered canon to the franchise and subsequent reprints would be rebranded under the Star Wars Legends label, with downloadable content for the massively multiplayer online game The Old Republic the only Legends material to still be produced. The Star Wars canon was subsequently restructured to only include the existing 6 feature films, the animated film The Clone Wars, and its companion animated series. All future projects and creative developments across all types of media would be overseen and coordinated by the Story Group, announced as a division of Lucasfilm created to maintain continuity and a cohesive vision on the storytelling of the franchise. Multiple comics series from Marvel and novels published by Del Rey were produced after the announcement. Print media. Star Wars in print predates the release of the first film, with the November 1976 novelization of Star Wars, initially subtitled From the Adventures of Luke Skywalker. Credited to Lucas, it was ghostwritten by Alan Dean Foster. The first expanded universe story appeared in Marvel Comics' Star Wars No. 7 in January 1978, followed by Foster's sequel novel Splinter of the Mind's Eye the following month. Novels, comics, audio, soundtracks and singles, audio novels, radio, video games. The Star Wars franchise has spawned over 100 computer, video, and board games, dating back to some of the earliest home consoles. Some are based directly on the movie material, while others rely heavily on the non-canonical expanded universe. Star Wars games have gone through 3 significant development eras, marked by a change in leadership among the developers: the early licensed games, those developed after the creation of LucasArts, and those created after the closure of the Lucasfilm division by Disney and the transfer of the license to Electronic Arts. Early licensed games: LucasArts and modern self-published games. IEA Star Wars/I. None. Theme park attractions. In addition to the Disneyland ride Star Tours and its successor, Star Tours, the adventures continue. Many live attractions have been held at Disney parks, including the traveling exhibition Where Science Meets Imagination, the Space Mountain spin-off Hyperspace Mountain, a walk-through Launch Bay, and the nighttime A Galactic Spectacular. An immersive themed area called Galaxy's Edge opened at Disneyland and opened at Walt Disney World in mid-2019. A themed hotel, Star Wars, Galactic Star Cruiser, is currently under construction at Walt Disney World. Multimedia projects. A multimedia project involves works released across multiple types of media. Shadows of the Empire was a multimedia project set between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi that included a novel by Steve Perry, a comic book series, a video game, and action figures. The Force Unleashed was a similar project set between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope that included a novel, a 2008 video game and its 2010 sequel, a graphic novel, a role-playing game supplement, and toys. Merchandising. The success of the Star Wars films led the franchise to become one of the most merchandised franchises in the world. While filming the original 1977 film, George Lucas decided to take a $500,000 pay cut to his salary as director in exchange for full ownership of the franchise's merchandising rights. By 1987, the first 3 films have made $2.6 billion in merchandising revenue. By 2012, the first 6 films produced approximately $20 billion in merchandising revenue. Kenner made the first Star Wars action figures to coincide with the release of the original film, and today the original figures are highly valuable. Since the 1990s, Hasbro holds the rights to create action figures based on the saga. Pez dispensers began to be produced in 1997. Star Wars was the first intellectual property to be licensed in LEGO history. LEGO has produced animated parody short films and mini-series to promote their Star Wars sets. The LEGO Star Wars video games are critically acclaimed bestsellers. In 1977, the board game Star Wars: Escape from the Death Star was released. A Star Wars Monopoly and themed versions of Trivial Pursuit and Battleship were released in 1997, with updated versions released in subsequent years. The board game Risk has been adapted in 2 editions by Hasbro, the Clone Wars edition and the original Trilogy edition. 3 Star Wars tabletop role-playing games have been developed, a version by West End Games in the 1980s and 1990s, one by Wizards of the Coast in the 2000s, and one by Fantasy Flight Games in the 2010s. Star Wars trading cards have been published since the first Blue Series, by Topps, in 1977. Dozens of series have been produced, with Topps being the licensed creator in the United States. Each card series are of film stills or original art. Many of the cards have become highly collectible with some very rare promos, such as the 1993 Galaxy Series 2 floating Yoda P3 card often commanding $1,000 or more. While most base or common card sets are plentiful, many insert or chase cards are very rare. From 1995 until 2001, Decipher, Inc. had the license for, created, and produced the Star Wars customizable card game. Themes. Star Wars features elements such as knighthood, chivalry, and Jungian archetypes such as the Shadow. There are also many references to Christianity, such as in the appearance of Darth Maul, whose design draws heavily from traditional depictions of the devil. Anakin was conceived of a virgin birth, and is assumed to be the chosen one, a messianic individual. However, unlike Jesus, Anakin falls from grace, remaining evil as Darth Vader until Return of the Jedi. According to Adam Driver, sequel trilogy villain Kylo Ren, who idolizes Vader, believes he is doing what he thinks is right. George Lucas has said that the theme of the saga is redemption. The saga draws heavily from the hero's journey, an archetypical template developed by comparative mythologist Joseph Campbell. Each character, primarily Anakin, Luke, and Rey, follows the steps of the cycle or undergoes its reversal, becoming the villain. A defining step of the journey is atonement with the Father. Obi-Wan's loss of a father figure could have impacted his relationship with Anakin, whom both Obi-Wan and Palpatine are father-like mentors to. Luke's discovery that Vader is his father has strong repercussions on the saga and is regarded as one of the most influential plot twists in cinema. Supreme Leader Snoke encourages Kylo Ren to kill his father, Han Solo. Kylo uses the fact that Rey is an orphan to tempt her into joining the dark side. According to Inverse, the final scene in The Last Jedi, which depicts servant children playing with a toy of Luke and one boy using the Force, symbolizes that the Force can be found in people with humble beginnings. Historical influences. Political science has been an important element of Star Wars since the franchise launched in 1977, focusing on a struggle between democracy and dictatorship. Battles featuring the Ewoks and Gungans against the Empire and Trade Federation, respectively, represent the clash between a primitive society and a more advanced one, similar to the Vietnam-American War. Darth Vader's design was initially inspired by samurai armor, and also incorporated a German military helmet. Originally, Lucas conceived of the Sith as a group that served the Emperor in the same way that the Schutzstaffel served Adolf Hitler. This was condensed into one character in the form of Vader. Stormtroopers borrow the name of World War I German shock troopers. Imperial officers wear uniforms resembling those of German forces during World War II, and political and security officers resemble the black-clad SS down to the stylized silver death's head on their caps. World War II terms were used for names in the films, e.g. the planets Kessel and Hoth. Shots of the commanders looking through at-walker view screens in The Empire Strikes Back resemble tank interiors, and space battles in the original film were based on World War I and World War II dogfights. Palpatine being a chancellor before becoming the emperor in the prequel trilogy alludes to Hitler's role before appointing himself Führer. Lucas has also drawn parallels to historical dictators such as Julius Caesar, Napoleon Bonaparte, and politicians like Richard Nixon. The Great Jedi Purge mirrors the events of the Night of the Long Knives. The corruption of the Galactic Republic is modeled after the fall of the Democratic Roman Republic and the formation of an empire. On the inspiration for the First Order formed from the ashes of the Empire, The Force Awakens director J.J. Abrams spoke of conversations the writers had about how the Nazis could have escaped to Argentina after World War II and started working together again. Cultural impact. The Star Wars saga has had a significant impact on popular culture, with references to its fictional universe deeply embedded in everyday life. Phrases like Evil Empire and May the Force be with you have become part of the popular lexicon. The first Star Wars film in 1977 was a cultural unifier, enjoyed by a wide spectrum of people. The film can be said to have helped launch the science fiction boom of the late 1970s and early 1980s, making science fiction films a mainstream genre. The widespread impact made it a prime target for parody works and homages, with popular examples including Hardware Wars, Spaceballs, The Family Guy trilogy and Robot Chicken, Star Wars. In 1989, the Library of Congress selected the original Star Wars film for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry, as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. The Empire Strikes Back was selected in 2010, and Return of the Jedi was selected in 2021. 35mm reels of the 1997 special editions were the versions initially presented for preservation because of the difficulty of transferring from the original prints, but it was later revealed that the library possesses a copyright deposit print of the original theatrical releases. Industry. The original Star Wars film was a huge success for 20th Century Fox, and was credited for reinvigorating the company. Within 3 weeks of the film's release, the studio's stock price doubled to a record high. Prior to 1977, 20th Century Fox's greatest annual profits were $37 million, while in 1977, the company broke that record by posting a profit of $79 million. The franchise helped Fox to change from an almost bankrupt production company to a thriving media conglomerate. Star Wars fundamentally changed the aesthetics and narratives of Hollywood films, switching the focus of Hollywood-made films from deep, meaningful stories based on dramatic conflict, themes, and irony to sprawling special effects-laden blockbusters, as well as changing the Hollywood film industry in fundamental ways. Before Star Wars, special effects in films had not appreciably advanced since the 1950s. The commercial success of Star Wars created a boom in state-of-the-art special effects in the late 1970s. Along with Jaws, Star Wars started the tradition of the summer blockbuster film in the entertainment industry, where films open on many screens at the same time and profitable franchises are important. It created the model for the major film trilogy and showed that merchandising rights on a film could generate more money than the film itself did. Film critic Roger Ebert wrote in his book The Great Movies, like The Birth of a Nation and Citizen Kane, Star Wars was a technical watershed that influenced many of the movies that came after. It began a new generation of special effects and high-energy motion pictures. The film was one of the first films to link genres together to invent a new, high-concept genre for filmmakers to build upon. Finally, along with Steven Spielberg's Jaws, it shifted the film industry's focus away from personal filmmaking of the 1970s and towards fast-paced, big-budget blockbusters for younger audiences. Some critics have blamed Star Wars and Jaws for ruining Hollywood by shifting its focus from sophisticated films such as The Godfather, Taxi Driver, and Annie Hall to films about spectacle and juvenile fantasy, and for the industry shift from stand-alone, one-and-done films, towards blockbuster franchises with multiple sequels and prequels. One such critic, Peter Biskind, complained, when all was said and done, Lucas and Spielberg returned the 1970s audience, grown sophisticated on a diet of European and New Hollywood films, to the simplicities of the pre-1960s golden age of movies. They marched backward through the looking glass. In an opposing view, Tom Schoen wrote that through Star Wars and Jaws, Lucas and Spielberg didn't betray cinema at all, they plugged it back into the grid, returning the medium to its roots as a carnival sideshow, a magic act, one big special effect, which was a kind of rebirth. The original Star Wars trilogy is widely considered one of the best film trilogies in history. Numerous filmmakers have been influenced by Star Wars, including Damon Lindelof, Dean Devlin, Roland Emmerich, John Lasseter, David Fincher, Joss Whedon, John Singleton, Kevin Smith, and later Star Wars directors J.J. Abrams and Gareth Edwards. Lucas's concept of a used universe particularly influenced Ridley Scott's Blade Runner and Alien, James Cameron's Aliens as well as The Terminator, George Miller's Mad Max 2, and Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy. Christopher Nolan cited Star Wars as an influence when making the 2010 blockbuster film Inception. Fan works. Academia. As the characters and the storyline of the original trilogy are so well known, educators have used the films in the classroom as a learning resource. For example, a project in Western Australia honed elementary school students' storytelling skills by role-playing action scenes from the movies and later creating props and audio/visual scenery to enhance their performance. Others have used the films to encourage second-level students to integrate technology in the science classroom by making prototype lightsabers. Similarly, psychiatrists in New Zealand and the US have advocated their use in the university classroom to explain different types of psychopathology. See also. Notes.